with what we have authorized. You'll be safe.
Good job, you beautiful. Thanks.
And those slain by Jehovah will certainly come to be in that day from one end of the earth clear to the other end of the earth. The gays are gone. Now you're going to feel sorry for these people? No. Dead bodies and body parts of the wicked in streets, alleyways, fields, and buildings. We will react to it as we do when a vicious serial murderer is executed. How do you feel about him when he gets it? Why, we will feel an inner satisfaction that at last Jehovah's justice has been served. Now, how will Jehovah dispose of all these bodies of those slain by him? Ezekiel 39, our God will thoroughly cleanse the land.
Nuclear Gopher was a record label and online community of Jehovah's Witnesses who all did indie music, starting with my family and expanding out to other people for about a total of 17 years.
The idea of playing in anything that seemed like a rock band was, and I think still is, like, it's scandalous. You know, you could play your music in your garage, but your popular music, popular culture is something that you're supposed to be suspicious of. Don't put too much time and energy into this unspiritual pursuit.
Princess of selfishness, she is only.
It's difficult to describe to somebody who maybe doesn't experience it. But for creative people, it's like a need. And you have to be creative or you'll go nuts. And so to be able to find a group of people within a religion as strict as that one, to be able to share that with, and people who are also serious about the religion, was such an amazing thing. To be able to be creative and a little out there, yet still keep your life going in a way that you could view as holy at the same time, was amazing.
So it just blew up, but it all stayed in these weird little bounds. It was like you'd have a music festival, but there were elders there and nobody could be doing anything naughty and everything had to be somewhat chaperoned, and occasionally some people would be a little offended, but mostly you could get away with it as long as, you know, everybody kind of understood the rules. You had to be a witness in good standing. If you got disfellowshipped, you're out of the band, sorry. And you couldn't make music that people would find controversial.
Ryan tried to get it, we're all on one page type thing, which is the whole point of the website. This is what everybody's doing, let's collaborate, let's show off our music, let's do something with this.
I had this weird thought in my head that if we had an indie record label, like maybe our hobby and our passion could, if we kept control of it, like if we controlled the horizontal, we controlled the vertical, we did all of it, then we wouldn't have to worry about being worldly, we wouldn't have to worry about the sex and drugs, you know, we could maybe just make music.
This is a Purple Triangles recording session. Well, Ryan on kazoo, which will not be in the final recording. Percussionist, if I can find him, James Daniel Zimmerman, playing the infamous chair.
Now, mind you, it's not Christian music. The songs were never topical about the religion. If they were so vague that you could barely tell. Christian music it's worldly music. It's not only is it worse than secular music, it is music that was inspired by false religions. You don't write your own songs of praise to God. You don't sing about your own experiences with faith. Those limitations made it absolutely ripe for the kind of fun power pop stuff that was coming out of Nuclear Gopher at the time.
Music was always the most important thing. I didn't take time to actually delve into their belief system. At 17, I basically thought to myself, what am I doing? Is this how I want to live my life? Like, do I even believe this? And then I decided to start actually looking at the religion, because it's like, well, if I'm going to live my life by this, I need to know that I believe this. Because I'm not going to do it if I don't. Because I can't. I'll kill myself.
We, as ex-witnesses, it's hard for us to think rationally about the good things we got out of being witnesses. And I got a lot of good things out of it. Door to door got me used to talking to lots of people in lots of different ways. I learned debate and speech and all sorts of great stuff in the theocratic ministry school. Tons of friends. I got a strong DIY ethic that came out of feeling like I had to keep things in the house, right? And it made me learn technology, made me learn music, made me learn lots of stuff. There was so much good that I got out of that stuff that it's just a real bummer that, like, there's this shitty stuff too, you know? Like, if they just treated people all right and had some kooky beliefs, I could totally live with it. I would not spend 1 minute of my time trying to do anything about it. But friends who committed suicide because they're gay and they're a witness. So it's not harmless.
The core beliefs of the Jehovah's Witnesses, when I think about those, I usually think about how they contrast with most other Christian religions.
Most people know them for not celebrating holidays, so they don't celebrate Christmas, they don't celebrate birthdays.
Jehovah's Witnesses are funny. They have a strange dichotomy regarding knowledge and learning. You know, they want their members to be well-spoken, good readers, to know about the world. They encourage us to go to compulsory education, kindergarten through 12th grade, be a good student, attend, get good grades, try your best, but they don't want you to go to college. And they expect you to read all their literature that they publish, which is there's just a lot of stuff that comes out of the Watchtower factories all the time that they want you to read.
They're well known for their preaching ministry. That's a huge part of it. They believe it's their job to do that as part of their responsibility during the end of the world.
And they think that any moment now, God is going to destroy the world, not the physical world, but human culture, basically, and murder most of the people, about 99% of them.
They believed that the world was going to end and that they were going to be the ones signaling the end of the world as we know it.
Most Christian religions think when you die, you go to heaven. And then a lot also believe that if you are bad, you go to hell or possibly purgatory. Witnesses believe when you die, you're just in a state of non-existence, and that humans are supposed to live here on Earth forever.
You're under the microscope more as a witness woman. Women are in that particular cult essentially there to be supportive to the men. You don't have an identity.
work hard, sharing divine teaching right in their own local territory. One of such families is the Zimmerman family, and we'd like to talk with them for a few moments. Young James Zimmerman also, at the age of 16, your son became a regular pioneer, and at the age of 17, while still 17, he became a ministerial servant. So let's speak with him for a moment. Young brother James, how do you feel about your parents' conscientious efforts to instill in you a love for Jehovah and his standards?
Well, I really appreciate being able to be taught by Jehovah through such a faithful family of parents and grandparents and uncles and aunts, because their fine example makes it easier for me to serve Jehovah, and also it gives me a greater incentive to set meaningful spiritual goals for myself. So I'm really proud to belong to such a spiritual family.
Thank you for being taught by Jehovah.
The funny thing about the witnesses that were associated with Nuclear Gopher is that a lot of them were really good witnesses. So even though other witnesses didn't always like it, those people are spending too much time writing and recording music, and they're devoting too much time to their craft of playing guitar and playing at local gigs. So witnesses wouldn't like that because you're supposed to give all of your strength and time to the religion, right? But at the same time, it was hard to get too mad at them because they were also good at the religion itself.
Your standard witness, which would be referred to as a publisher, is expected to do 11 hours of ministry a month, and the hours are counted very specifically. It's only when you're actually out. And if you take a break, you don't count your break, and you don't count lunch. It's just the hours you're actually preaching, and you're expected to get 11 on top of whatever sort of employment you're doing. And the time at the congregation meetings doesn't count towards it either.
For example, Rhett Sutter was a top-notch drummer who recorded awesome music, but he was also a regular pioneer, who went full-time door-to-door, and he was a very humble, loving witness who everyone got along with, and everyone considered him to be a friend, So his eccentric weirdness of being a musician was almost endearing because he was also a good witness. So they somehow were able to finagle that.
You should be focused on the preaching work. Trying to make a great piece of art, it's like if you start spending too much time on it, someone will say something like, well, think how much time you could be devoting to the ministry. Or like someone who's an amazing painter. I knew lots of amazing painters. Invariably, someone would go, well, you could go to headquarters and you could paint for the magazines. And it's like, no, I'm painting a picture of my ex-girlfriend, like dead in a grave, like this really meaningful piece of art to them. And the people, all they could think was like, well, you could be painting pictures of people preaching and it would be the same thing. And like, it was always frowned upon to do anything bigger. Usually your artist types, you might be a little weirder than your average, like super down the line witness kid. And people are threatened by that. And the sort of music you make, people get real upset about. Like, I've been at witness graduation parties where like a witness band is playing and they're like playing some REM song, and the dad like took an axe and chopped the power cord because he was offended by the way the guy who was singing was dancing. And he like unplugged all the guitars and kicked him out of the party because of the way the guy was dancing. And it wasn't anything, like he was just like singing a song, but the dad got so upset. Like stuff like that is like totally par for the course.
My older brother Rhett and myself, my younger brother Reed, grew up going to my mom's band practices. When I was in kindergarten, Rhett and I started trying to make our own music. We formed our band, we called it the Lavone in 1986. I was 12, 13, whatever. We recorded our first album, Psychotrauma. We had, 3 channels. We had no cable TV. We had the Jehovah's Witness meetings. We had school. So we came home, and what did we do? We made music. That was just like the thing.
Hi, I'm Rhett Sutter, and I'm doing a demonstration tape on the modern audio equipment that our studio has, just in case you want to come and record in our modern studio.
So when I was 12, I got a paper route, and I started to use that money. I bought myself a guitar and an amp. We bought some synthesizers. We had a Moog Opus 3, and we had an Oberheim, which is worth like $1 gazillion now, but at the time we got it for a couple $100. And we started recording albums on overdub multi-tracking.
We've got the finest audio equipment that is available at this known time, or at least that the Beatles worked with. So if you'd like to record, my name is Rhett, and come on down and We'll give you a tour through the studio.
I always knew that I wanted to play music, but I also, believed that this was the truth. And I didn't know if I was going to be able to do those two things. I always wanted to play, dinked around a little bit on guitar, but I didn't have anybody else who was remotely interested in listening to or playing music as much as I was. This guy, Ryan, moves into our congregation and he says, oh yeah, I've been in a band with my brother for years, since we were like 10 years old or something. And I'm just like very fascinated with that. Like, really? He goes, oh yeah, there's like a group of us. We have our own label and everything. And I was like, what?
A multi-track recording studio with a 4-track has to have a name. I was cleaning my room one day, I found a piece of paper, and I had written on the piece of paper, in the middle of the night, while asleep, I had written The Gay Laughter of Nuclear Gophers. And I don't know why I wrote that down. The Gay Laughter of Nuclear Gophers, what the hell?
I owned a video camera, and I brought the video camera places. I shot footage of them recording music a couple times. They encouraged other people to do other artistic things, whether it was making videos or paintings or whatever, just as kind of a artistic outlet.
Love that. They would love that. Just shut up and do it.
First, what you want to do is get a couple of slices of bread.
Whoa. I'm not familiar with this. What's this stuff? You are selected to come to my party.
And what's this?
Party.
Rated.
Rated PG for alcohol use and adult themes.
She'll
Call
you
back.
Do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me?
Huh. What an interesting ball. I wonder if you could throw that through a hoop.
Sometimes we made actual music videos of their music. I remember we did She Cooked Me Up and Ate Me for Dinner was one of their songs, and we made the music video to go with it. And it was like, this is the official music video, even though it's never going to be on MTV, and even though we're super low budget, this is the official music video.
Glances slowly, glances coolly, gets me spooky, calls me bookie. She cooked me up and ate me for dinner, 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 up and ate me for dinner, cooked me up and ate me for dinner, cooked me up and ate me for dinner, cooked me up and ate me for dinner. Tarred and feather, rest and bother, pulls me by the collar, makes me wanna holler.
But I can't stop loving her. She makes my life complete.
They were doing painting and they were making their own album art, and they had like 12 albums done, and they loved it. And on top of that, they were all really, really serious about being witnesses too. It wasn't like something where you'd go hang out and it's like, yeah, we're witnesses or whatever, but like, here's a joint. Nothing like that. Naturally, like everybody kind of flocked, and eventually we had this like incredible scene of just tons of people playing music and in bands, and we'd put on like a little like festival thing every year.
They would take over a coffee shop on a Sunday afternoon, and we'd just flood it with witnesses, and they'd play these, little half-hour sets. It became this local deal. Like, you just knew, everybody knew the band Chloe, everybody knew the band SP3, and it just kind of gained all this momentum locally.
Josh, who decided that he wanted to do a music festival of his own. His property that he lived on was called October Ridge, so he started inviting all these witness bands, and he didn't tell me till many years later that it was because of Nuclear Gopher that he was like, oh, we can do that? Okay, I'm gonna do a music festival. And so a lot of the Nuclear Gopher bands were playing at October Ridge.
This is Day Trip's 4th time playing October Ridge, the only veterans here. Without further ado, Day Trip.
They would have like 200-300 kids, and we'd be in a big old pole shed, set up a stage on a really long flatbed trailer, and get a PA and wire it up and just have a bunch of kids, from all over the Twin Cities area playing their songs, and you like the legit music festival. It had like 10 bands.
Best friend was Robbie Sutter. I played with Ryan and Reed, and that was like my core group. And of course, like my husband now, Eric, also became involved in that. And Chloe, I was the songwriter. I played guitar. Reed played drums, and he produced our music into kind of the twee pop. Even though my songs were actually kind of dark, he made them like really poppy. So it was basically like my songs, his voice type thing.
I was invited to take over on bass for this band called Day Trip. The former bass player had gotten disfellowshipped, and so they were out a bass player. Now, I wasn't baptized, but I was studying and I grew up in it, and they knew that I was on track, that I was trying to get baptized. They took a risk asking me to be a part of it, but the guy who asked me to be a part of it was such a likable, sterling example of what it was to be a Jehovah's Witness that they got away with it. And that's awesome that he did that. They were like the ultimate cool kids in that whole little micro community, and then I became one of them. It's really weird to be like the minutest minor rock star in a group of like 400 or 500 kids. You go to like conventions and kids would walk up to you, "Are you in Day Trip?" And I'm like, "Yeah, dude, it's tight, I went to several different congregations around the country after being a part of that, and they would just look at you like, "Are you lying to me?" They wouldn't believe it. Were they all disfellowshipped? Like, were the elders okay with that? And like, the elders, like, it was like an elder who played in an opening band, It's kind of like some dad rock band. You got an elder who's from such and such a congregation, he's just sitting there playing bass. And it's really humanizing.
If you show up at like a congregation picnic with like pick a stupid band, like, I don't know, Aerosmith shirt. Someone might go like, "I don't know how you dressed at the picnic the other day, that didn't look good." And then people start talking. Witnesses can listen to music. It's not like a Footloose situation where like the preacher's like, "No music ever." But there are definite, stuff is frowned upon. I'd almost rather just read it out of one of their books, but they'll say like music with a rebellious spirit or an overtly sexual spirit, or honestly some vaguely racist shit about like anything that sounds like hip hop is frowned upon.
When I was 7 years old, Lionel Richie was the shit. Dancing on the Ceiling was my jam. That was like, it was just the coolest thing. And I had the tape and I was playing it all the time. I'd just be playing it over and over. And there was this older sister in the hall, and my mom and I had gone over to visit them at their house. And like, "Oh, this is Chad. What is Chad like?" "Well, Chad loves music." And I'm like, "What was he like?" "Like Lionel Richie." "Oh, I don't know if I've ever heard of Lionel Richie." "Well, I got the tape. Let's listen to it." She goes, "Yeah. That's that disco beat. You need to really beware of that disco beat, because that disco beat invites the demons. It's Lionel Richie. I mean, even then, I love Lionel Richie, but like, this is not inviting the demons. He's talking about dancing on the ceiling.
When the internet arrived, I got a job doing software development in 1994 because I was starving to death as a uneducated Jehovah's Witness. So I went to a few months of tech school and I got myself into a programming job. And one day somebody walked up and said, there's some new thing called the internet and we need you to, because you're the only person with a modem. This is 1994. Like, could you connect to this thing? And I had to use a program that I had actually written to dial up to the internet. So the first time I connected to the internet in my life, it was with software I had actually written. Pretty early on, I started going, well, we have our music and this internet thing seems like it could be a thing. Maybe I should put our music on this internet thing. So the Lavones album, Some Enchanted Evening, actually has a distinction that I can't totally prove, but at the time we were in a magazine that doesn't exist. But there was an article that basically gave us credit for being the first live streamed complete album on the internet. So we were trailbreakers. I don't know. I was doing it because I wanted to learn how to get better at computer stuff. It never did make anybody rich and famous, but it did actually get our name out there. More importantly, other witnesses started to find it, right? And that was kind of how it started to grow. Because once it was online, then people were like, oh, you can do that? You can, but I'm a witness and I want to make music. I always thought I couldn't do that.
You know, we were all going to meetings and doing what we needed to do, but it always seemed like the music came first. But that was like the only thing that was making me happy at that point in my life. And witnesses don't believe in going to therapy or anything. There was really not much talk surrounding that. Like if I was feeling blue or, you know, having like a breakdown, like it was just kind of, well, pray more. We'll have the elders come over and talk with you. That's the only way I was supported. So I kind of had to just take it into my own hands and lean into music to feel anything. It was kind of like a therapy for me. Like oftentimes I would write songs and play and I'd be crying at the same time. And I wasn't like feeling particularly emotional. It would just happen. Tears would just start flowing. And then I'd feel better. Music was my savior at that point.
The moment people started taking it seriously is the moment that someone would start to, well, maybe we shouldn't be doing this. Which tangentially, that's kind of an interesting thing. There was always that excuse to pull the plug, more relational aggression. Like I can pull the plug on my part of your creative release and outlet if you don't behave the way you're supposed to, toe the line.
Nuclear Gopher was very special. It created a space for people to be eccentric and creative and also as healthy as you could be in that culture. It was a place where we felt safe and celebrated for being the type of people to like make a short film or let's shoot a music video or like let's write a stupid movie and go to the mall and make it, you know, and other people would be like, what a bunch of weirdos, and we're like, we know, but it's all we are. And it was just absolutely precious to have a place that was safe and was real and like actual really great art was getting made by all these people, and it was like an excuse to maintain all these friendships, and while it lasted it was like the best.
We're never alone, and we've always been. Yes, we've always been. We're patterns imprinted on stars.
I had been having this thought just nagging at the back of my mind. And the thought was really simple. If animals were created to be vegetarians, like all animals in the Garden of Eden never ate any other animals, how could ecosystems function? Because from my understanding of what Watchtower taught, animals, they didn't have eternal life, right? But so that meant at least you had to have animals that ate other animals. Like bacteria had to at least help decompose a dead animal. If predator-prey relationships didn't exist, wouldn't prey overrun vegetation? Like I started thinking about just the dynamics of ecosystems. And I thought, well, it wouldn't work. And so I brought that up to my wife. And I was like, so have you ever thought about this before? This predator-prey thing and ecosystems, and like the Garden of Eden is like not really a viable ecosystem, you know? Like, and she's like, we shouldn't talk about that. That's no. And we just kind of shut it down. So the next day my friend James and his wife Jennifer came over, and like James was a Bethelite, and I'm like, James, we had this conversation and we had this kind of weird thought, like this has been bugging me. And I brought it up and James goes, oh yeah, no, that wouldn't have worked. Also, Noah's flood isn't possible either. And he just said it flat out. I had known James since we were kids. He's like third generation witness, you know. It's like the last thing on earth I'm expecting. He just blurts this out.
And eventually his wife, she just told us to stop talking about it. She was so upset because it was such a challenge to her faith, you know. And I remember even on the ride home, my wife was saying, why would you talk like that? And I said, because I'm just speaking out of honesty. I'm not trying to apostatize or to get other people to leave the religion, of course. I want them to stay in the religion. That's the important thing. But these things have bothered me. I've even written to the Watchtower Society looking for answers. And my wife said, you know, you probably really, you clearly upset Amanda. You probably also really upset Ryan. I think you should, maybe, do you want to try smoothing it over with them or apologize to them? So the next day at work, I sent Ryan an email and I said, I'm sorry for what I was saying. I didn't mean to delve into apostate thinking or reasoning. It's just something that's bothered me for many years, that there's no good reason. Ryan wrote back super casual, as if he hadn't even given a second thought. He said, oh, no worries, man. We were just talking. It's good we can have honest conversations like that, you know? And then I wrote back and I said, but if you want to know the depth of why I'm really questioning this, check out this link. And I sent him a link of like 20 reasons why the Great Flood can't be an actual historical event.
I spent the rest of my afternoon at work following every one of these links and reading this stuff, and it literally destroyed my entire belief system in like an hour.
Ryan never responded, and like a week later he was no longer a witness. I remember my wife saying, oh, you probably caused one of our best friends to leave the religion. I didn't even believe her. I was like, no, he was on his way out anyway, because there's such cognitive dissonance. But yeah, I actually learned later that was what got him going out.
Once he started knocking the dominoes down, I was like, this is impossible. The continent of Antarctica proves this is impossible. Like Methuselah pine trees in California prove this is impossible. Like I just like, this didn't happen. So I was like, well, okay, I'm gonna go back to the creation book. So I went back to that book and I started looking up the actual quotes. And they have this paragraph like in 2 or 3 pages in where it says something like, to think that the eye with its contrivances and could have evolved seems absurd. But it was being used to prop up the idea that Charles Darwin didn't think eyeballs could have evolved. It literally says, is it possible that something as complex as the eye could have evolved? Charles Darwin didn't think so. Then they show this quote, they cut it off, and then they go on. So I looked up the quote in The Origin of Species. And when I looked up the quote, what I noticed, it was a rhetorical device in the paragraph. And in fact, the next sentence in the paragraph answers the question he raises. He literally goes and says, to believe that the eye with all of its myriad contrivances could have evolved seems impossible. However, and then he explains how it's possible. Now, that was when I realized this is dishonesty. It's not simply a mistake. They had to ignore the rest of this very sentence. and use it to prop up an argument that was the exact opposite of what he had said. That really shook me, because I was like, wait a second, we've got an intentional case of a logical fallacy and intentional dishonesty happening right here. So then I started looking up everything. And what I found out was that, that book is just like a collection of misattributed quotes, misapplied logic, partial cherry picking of facts, ignoring complete and total everything. The thing that bothered me so much wasn't that they were wrong about creation, it was that they lied their asses off to cover it up. What I found was that the more I pulled on the threads with the Watchtower stuff, the more it unraveled, and the more I pulled on the threads with the science stuff, the more it got solid. And then I was screwed. All of a sudden, like, none of it's true.
If you go in and the sin was either like something that had happened in the past already and you did it again, or if you're not sorry enough, you'll get like discipline, which could mean losing your privileges where you're not allowed to speak in front of the congregation, or in serious cases, you could get disfellowshipped, which means you're not allowed to speak to anyone. You're not allowed to, you can basically just come to the meetings, but you can't talk to anybody. Your family's only supposed to talk to you about family business. They're not supposed to be your friend, and that's only if you live in the house. If you live outside the house, they're not even supposed to talk to you. And if you decide you want to come back from that, the quickest you're going to get back from that is about a year, usually, which is spent in complete solitude. And if that ever happens to you, if you screw up again, you're just like instantly on disfellowshipping territory again.
I was just really unhappy in that lifestyle. I just hung out with people who were considered kind of like edgy, or I was interested in edgy things, like focusing on the music. It just got me I just got a bad reputation. And I think I fed on that later because it really affected me. Being made to feel like I was just this bad person. All the time. It's I was never really gonna learn about myself in that religion. You're a number. That's it. So I couldn't handle that. I had so many other passions. I wanted to know more about just life and the world, and I just felt so stuck. I started reading all the material, all of their books. It was, my brother said that it was he was watching A Beautiful Mind, because I was nutty about it. Because I was so scared, because it was I was going to lose my family. I was going to lose my whole identity if I came to the conclusion that this wasn't for me. And so I was scared shitless and started almost trying to force myself to believe it by reading everything. And, you couldn't read anything outside of their literature, so I had nothing really to compare it to. I started writing about God in a way that was almost I was trying to understand it or feel like it made sense to me. It wouldn't have been particularly obvious to other witnesses, but it was kind of the beginnings of my feelings towards that belief system.
I'm a little nervous because it's new. It's called The Tune You Wrote Me. I woke up, I spoke up when you tried to accuse me. Was not I the one high that never made you sigh? And now it's wrong to sing along, to turn your old me.
So I came out and I like wrote a letter and I said, you know, we need to talk. I'm leaving you this as a letter because I don't really know if you want to talk about it right now or not, but maybe we shouldn't be together, because the decision I had come up with was I'm gonna deal with the marriage thing and I'm gonna keep quiet about the witness thing. I'm not saying anything. I wasn't brave. I wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna do this for my kid. I was just like, no, I need to do more research. I can't do this. So I get in my car, drive to work. 5 minutes after I leave the house, I get a phone call from her. I turn around, I come back. We start talking. She's like, do you really think we shouldn't be together? And I said, well, yeah. I mean, I'm not happy. You're not happy. This isn't working. We both know it. I'm like, we're together because, you know, Jehovah hates a divorcing, right? And she's like, well, so if we split up, would you still be a witness? And which I thought was kind of an odd question because I hadn't said anything at all about religion. But when she asked me that question, my internal editor was just gone. If you would have asked me what would I say, I would have been like, oh, of course, you know, we'll take it one step at a time. But what I actually said was, no, I don't believe any of it anymore. She was like crying at the moment that I said that, and as soon as I said it, she stopped crying. And she's like, oh, okay, so I'm gonna move back to my parents in Chicago, and I need you to leave right now. And I never saw her again.
Your wife?
Yeah, I never physically saw her again.
Now I don't have anyone to fight. No, I don't have anyone to fight or anywhere to be. It's hard to believe.
There's this tendency when people leave the religion, for the people who are still in the religion, to insinuate that they're of weak moral fiber, that they're selfish. They allowed their own selfish longings to supersede their love for Jehovah, ergo their love for the religion. When somebody leaves the Jehovah's Witnesses, their friends and family, the community that's still in that organization, are prone to basically character assassination. There's this necessity to completely shit on the memory that you had of somebody in order to do the mental gymnastics required to maintain your faith in this organization while shedding community members.
Just before I left the religion, late 2003, Nuclear Gopher we had been included in several music festivals, October Ridge multiple times, Amazing Fruit out in Chicago, and we had played lots and lots of shows of our own, right? But we hadn't ever done one that we set up. So we were working on a music festival, and it was going to be called My Adventure Flowerland, which is the title of a Lavone song from the very first Lavone album. It was going to be like October Ridge on steroids. We were going to get every single band that ever played October Ridge, plus some other bands who we had just recently met, plus the Lavone was going to play. So this was what Rhett and I were planning actively when I had my epiphany that the Garden of Eden wasn't a viable ecosystem. When that happened with the religion thing, I was like, well, that just ended. I mean, literally all things ended. Everything stopped immediately. When I left, it was kind of tainted. You know, nucleargopher.com was like, oh yeah, Ryan does that. So then I turned it over to Reed. I bowed out immediately. I was just like, look, I don't want any, Nuclear Gopher's the best thing I've ever been involved with. You guys are having an awesome time. Just because I'm not gonna be a witness doesn't mean you should stop. So I gave him all control. I signed over the domain to him. I gave him the keys to the kingdom. He went and registered another website called Band Kids Unite, made nucleargopher.com redirect to it, and it hasn't been updated since 2008, so kind of fizzled out. There was a little more to that conversation that I didn't just say, which was her saying, she's gonna tell my dad if I don't tell him that I'm not gonna be a witness. So I called my dad, and I told him I needed to talk to him. And we went to this park down the street from where I grew up. It was actually adjacent to the place where I played my very first band job when I was 15. And we sat in the car, and I said, look, I don't know how to tell you this, but I have to. I don't believe in the truth anymore. I don't believe it's true. And he was crying his eyes out, and it was just shitty. I mean, I felt like I was being asked to just go stab my father to death. I mean, when I got baptized when I was 16, I got out of the water, I got toweled off, I went and got back in my suit, I went back up. My father came up to me, he gives me a big hug, and he says, now you're not just my son, you're my brother. And then I'm just like, hey, Dad, I'm not gonna talk to you again, you know? And I was like, this is the shittiest thing ever. It was really bad. So I did that. And yeah, everything changed immediately. There wasn't really any intermediate time. It just kind of, everything just changed.
Ryan was vilified. Ryan was just the most selfish, sex-obsessed, just quirky, weirdo asshole. And, I remember people saying that, and I'm like, the hell are you getting this? Like, this person is it's quirky. That's the only thing that he was, we're all quirky, That's why we were drawn to each other. Even while I vaguely remember just being kind of heartbroken. It's like, oh, we're shitting on these people now? Oh, okay, I guess that's what we gotta do. They didn't love Jehovah very much, so they can't be, very good people.
You do something against the rules. Let's say, totally typical, you have too much to drink at a party, you end up making out with someone. Either you decide you feel guilty about it and go to the elders and tell them, this thing happened, I stepped over a line, or somebody else finds out and tells the elders on you. They'll come to you and say, we'd like to have a meeting, and it's always two elders. That comes from the Bible. And so they'll sit you down and they'll be like, well, we heard this thing, but they'll talk you through it and hope that you're going to tell the truth. And some people do and some people don't. But if you get caught lying to them, that's really bad, and it could go a lot of different ways. But mainly it's, if not a lot of people know about it, you can get what's called privately reproved, where they shepherd you spiritually and try and get you on the right path again. If a lot of people know about it and they still think you're sorry about it, you'll get publicly reproved, where they announce your name in front of the congregation at the meeting, and they'll announce that someone has been publicly reproved. And then randomly, suddenly here's a talk. Masturbation. Is it a sin? We know how Jehovah feels about masturbation, don't we? Let's turn to this book. And then they'll pull out the Bible, and then suddenly out of nowhere is this very specific talk, and then they'll mention you and that you were reproved. Or it'll be like overindulgence in alcohol, or being physically abusive, or whatever the thing is. It's very obvious who they're talking about, and you just sit there and wait through the talk, and people are looking at you.
Started the whole questioning thing, learned everything inside and out, and didn't believe any of it, and found out I didn't believe in God at all. So there I am, stuck with that. Favorite song to play with the band is probably Hi-Fi or Huckabee. My favorite song to sing would be probably A Prayer to Nolan. After I realized that I didn't believe it, I kind of just went along with it for another year or two. I think just out of fear, because I didn't know anything else. During that time, I started doing destructive things to myself to feel something. And I don't know if that was some way of trying to like just push myself into like believing it again or finding some comfort. I don't know. Slept with a couple people, and that's like a no-no in the religion. So I got in trouble a number of times. It was almost like a cutting for me, like cutting myself. I'm gonna go do this thing that I know I'm not supposed to do to make myself feel free or better, and then I'm gonna go back and tell on myself and get a punishment. And then I would sit in the elders meetings. They asked what we did, like, did you go out on a date? Like, did you start the conversation, initiate like you guys hanging out, which I did. Where did you go? Who else was there? Did anyone else, as far as your witness friends, know that you're meeting this person? I lied. Did you go to his house? Did you go to a hotel? Were his parents home? Or did he live on his own? How did it start? Did you start it? Where did he touch you? Where'd you touch him? Did you have sex? How long did it go for? I was asked if I had an orgasm. Like, really detailed. Like, extremely. And for a girl, first sexual experience, having to like talk to 3 men about it and like be punished over it. Now I'm horrified, but it was scary. I felt weird, very weird about it. And once I went through all the details, you're sent out of the room. They talk. They call you back in. They tell you what's going to happen. So I was sent out of the room, probably 15, 20 minutes. Came back in. And they said, well, because there weren't any other witnesses that knew about this, and because you're repentant, you came to us, we're going to privately reprove you. During that time period is when I started to really think about taking off, leaving the religion.
I could never replace you. I'd never try. Nothing will ever erase you.
This is the temp space. This place is filled with stuff. I keep it next to the Naruto comics. I've got man get here by evolution or by creation. Reasoning from the scriptures. The harp of God. It's got some really, really, really out there things in it that are really obvious when you look at the very first page, okay? This says, proof conclusive that millions now living will never die. This one, the Truth Book, this is what made my family become Jehovah's Witnesses. This was the book that my mom got. So what I wanted to show you was this. This is the Bible I made. When I left, Crafted with Love by Ryan Sutter in July 2006. And I actually hand bound it myself. And my Bible included an essay called The Ethics of Belief by William Clifford. And then The Age of Reason by Thomas Paine. Humanist Manifestos. Article from Wired Magazine called Why the Future Doesn't Need Us. Then the Gospel According to Zen, the Jefferson Bible, which includes all the non-supernatural parts of the Gospels. The Dhammapada from Buddhism. The Book of Ecclesiastes. The Enuma Elish, which is Babylonian mythology. The Epic of Gilgamesh. Then the Books of Bokanon by Kurt Vonnegut, which is what I want read at my funeral. An article called Over 300 Proofs of God's Existence, which is sort of a joke. I put all of this in, and my thinking was I wanted to collect my own holy texts that were relevant to my life at the time, in 2006. And so I did. sewed it together, and made a book. It was 4th of July weekend, so I had a long weekend. My girlfriend, future wife, Esther, she had been living in Brooklyn for the last 6 years. She wanted to show me Brooklyn. I'd never been to Brooklyn. And I was like, if we're going to Brooklyn, we're stopping by the Watchtower headquarters, right? Because I've never been. What I didn't know was my brother had broken a bone in his foot while helping somebody fix a fence. And they put a cast on his leg, and the cast was constricting. And he didn't feel very good, and he wanted to go get it taken care of, but he didn't have any health insurance because Jehovah's Witness, no education, works 3 shitty jobs, none of them have health insurance. The family didn't try to reach me while he was in the hospital. I went to my phone, I saw that I had like 1 million messages. It was a landline, you know, and I didn't want to check him because I had to go to work. So the phone rang, and I saw on the caller ID that it was Esther. And I answered it, and she's like bawling. And she's like, I don't know how to tell you this. Your brother died.
As of today, my voice sings alone. I have no more to say. My brother died this day. My heart is racked and torn. This hero has died, and I shall mourn.
So then I went to my parents' house, and my stepmom kicked me out. There were like 100 people there. I had to sit in the front yard. I wasn't allowed in the house. The nuclear gopher was in the basement. I stayed, and I said, I'll be good. I'll stay in the yard. Don't worry. And so my stepmom, Diana, she pulls me aside. She asks, don't you think it would be more dignified if you had a separate gathering at your own house? And I'm like, what? This is my house. I grew up here. Me and Rhett's bedroom is like, we shared that bedroom like our entire lives. Like, this is my dad, this is my other brother. It's like, you're kidding, right? And she literally went straight to, you know, there was a scientist who proved that creation is true and evolution is false. And you just don't want to believe because you have a bad heart. And I'm like, what? Wait, where is this coming from? I'm like, do you think I'm here to talk about evolution and creation? Do you think I'm here to debate religion? I just found out Rhett died 45 minutes ago. Like, why do you think I'm here? And she started yelling at me and telling me that if I did pray, God wasn't listening because I had a bad heart, so he wouldn't listen to my prayers. And that I didn't belong there. And she literally drove me out of my house. And I went from the backyard through the house out to the front step, and she was following me and yelling at me. And I got to the front step, and I saw that my mom had just got there, who's also an ex-witness, right? And like, my mom's not allowed there either, but she came there because that's where she raised her son. So I stopped, and I turned around, and I fucking apologized to her. I apologized to the woman who kicked me out of the house. I said, I'm sorry if me being here is upsetting. And I'm sorry if you feel that this is intrusive. And I promise that I will stay in the front yard and stay away from everybody. And I won't talk to anybody about anything.
When Ryan's brother died, and Ryan was disfellowshipped at the time. He went to the funeral, and they told him he had to sit outside until the funeral started. And he sat out there with the other disfellowshipped people, and one of them leaned over to him and said, "The people in that building love us. They've just been taught an incredibly stupid way to show it." It was his own brother's funeral. Your entire social sphere, everyone's pointing at you going like, well, you sinned against Jehovah, and you're making this so hard on us. I can't believe you did that. And they truly believe that. I don't think these are evil people, but that's how they see the world. And so all you've got is this completely lonely person who feels like they are the guiltiest, shittiest person on earth, and that they've hurt everyone they ever loved, and that God's not even really listening to them.
The death of Rhett and Ryan being there, I know that it made those of us who have left the religion and have come back to talk about the topic, all of us were very uncomfortable with how comfortable other people were with being pissed off. They thought that Ryan being at his brother's funeral was an act of audacity, was regarded as an act of audacity. How selfish. Why can't he just leave us alone? It's his brother's funeral. That moment was just what? No, that's not loving. This is his brother, He has human feelings. Even if I believe that he's probably going to die in Armageddon, I'm not happy about it. And I'm not happy to see anybody that I know and have loved and still did love suffering like that. It just rang as really selfish. Why isn't he thinking about us? Ryan knew him better than anyone else in the world.
When the funeral happened, it was at a big Kingdom Hall, one of those ones that opens up into a double hall for assemblies kind of thing, and I can't remember where it's located, but Rhett had gone to 10 different congregations over the years, and everybody loved him. He was just so lovable. And so everybody came to his funeral. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. It was the size of a circuit assembly.
How many people are we talking about?
1,200, maybe 15.
Wow.
None of them talked to me. There were people in the parking lot was overflowing with people. Most of these people I had known for decades. Didn't even speak to me.
He had lost the right to go to his own brother's funeral because he disagreed with the Jehovah's Witnesses about the ancient literature.
Lately, in bus lines, been aching for sunlight. I hear your voice on the other end, sounding empty as heaven.
After I left the Witnesses and reconnected with them, Cindy and Eric had gotten together and started collaborating. So you have Eric, one of the most talented structural songwriters that I know. He's really good at knowing what a song needs when to make it just really compelling. Paired up with one of the most gifted vocalists and melody writers that I have ever met. They make this record in their basement, decide that they want to start playing it out. I happen to be there, enlisted a couple of different drummers to take this shit show on the road type of thing. And it was an awful lot of fun. And we got to get on stage again. And the getting back on stage and playing with Eric and Cindy especially, playing with them has been absolutely the highlight of my musical everything. Yeah, super grateful that I've gotten to play with them, but also that that thing bridged the gap between before and after. And the name of that band was HighTV.
Once I left, and then Chad left 3 to 4 years later, and we moved back from Seattle to Minneapolis, then Eric and I took some of the songs that we wrote back at that point when we were still part of Nuclear Gopher. We took that and made it into 2 singles for the band HighTV. It wasn't just my idea anymore, it was me and Eric's deal, and then Chad and our friend Peter joined, and it like made the sound even that much better.
I did a solo EP called The Context that I was writing while leaving, like that was like a transitional thing, and then I recorded an album, my first kind of real solo thing called Songs of Bo Redoubt in 2005, 2006, and that's really an XJW album. It's like pure XJW album. Called Louder, Longer, Lobster by Trumpet Marine, which is my first RPM album. Those two are pretty much like bookends to each other. That's my XJW. That's my Leaving the Jehovah's Witnesses experience. If you want to hear it all in music, just listen to The Context, Bo Redoubt, Louder, Longer, Lobster. And you'll hear everything from me sort of dealing with the negativity and doubt all the way through the song Patterns Imprinted on Stars. That is all basically a 2-minute theological fairy tale that encompasses my entire philosophy of life. And then after that, everything's just been fucking around.
My life is so much more rewarding, so much more freeing. I miss my little community. I even miss feeling like there was a God that always knew how sincere I was. I kind of miss that. But wanting it doesn't make it so.
I want to say to anyone who is going through this experience or has gone through that experience that, like, yo, me too. Like, this, it sucks. It's super hard and scary, and there's a lot of difficult things that come along with it. But it's also okay to, like, really enjoy it too, because leaving that gives you this incredible thing that's simultaneously the most exciting thing in the world and the most terrifying thing in the world, which is absolute possibility. Like, you're no longer yoked into this limited worldview. Everything is possible, which means lots of bad stuff can happen that you never anticipated, but it also means that you can now do anything you want. You're free. It takes a while to dismantle that framework that's been built around you.
For 2 years, I blogged very heavily. I had a disclaimer on the blog that said, don't read this if you don't want to know. Not one witness I knew ever told me they were reading it, but they were. These people were reading my blog secretly, and they couldn't admit it to each other that they were doing it. James Zimmerman, the guy who originally said the thing about the ark that blew my brain up, right? At my brother's funeral, he shunned me. We had known each other since we were little kids. I walked up to him and I gave him a hug, and he didn't say a word. And a year later, he calls me up and he's like, when we were hugging at Rhett's funeral, I wanted to whisper in your ear and tell you I know you're right. But he couldn't tell anybody. He was closeted ex-witness. His wife has said they totally rejected me, but they've also read what I wrote, and they also thought about what happened to me. I mean, I never went out and, like, got anybody to come out, but, like, I've received a phone call 6, 8 times, like, from just a person who I knew who called me and said, so when I went through my dark time, I thought of all the stuff you wrote that I read that I wasn't supposed to read, And then I said, okay, I'm not doing it.
I can't look on people who are still witnesses and be angry with them necessarily. How could I do that without looking at myself when I was 23? I'd have to look at that same guy and be like, oh, what an asshole. It's like, no, that guy was trying really hard to do the right thing. He was knocking on a lot of doors, telling people some very bad ideas that could have been very dangerous, and maybe were. I have no idea how many people I preached to, were like, what about that magazine? And it, changed their life for the worse. But that guy was trying. So I can't, moralize that dude without impugning myself. And so you just extend that same view to everyone else. When I see some idiot saying some stupid racist thing on the news, I go I don't like the racist thing, but that person's just scared. They're scared of these people that look different. And if they got to know those people, it'd probably be fine. But they get this identity wrapped up in it, and for some reason they can't get past the fact that these people are from another country, and it's very threatening to them. But give them the right conversation, it could be over in a day. And just as much of that as you can do.
Honestly, I do believe witnesses truly love each other. Because I did. And nobody's going to fake that much. But I think that they only love each other. I think they're afraid of everything else. If you love somebody, you're willing to take a risk to be closer to them. You love a child. That's risky. Your kid could die, could turn against you. Raising a teenager, which I've done, it's hard. But because you love that person, you accept that risk, and you embrace it, and you deal with it. And if it hurts, it's fine. It changes nothing. But if you're afraid of somebody, you can't do love at the same time. In some theoretical sense, you still, I'm sure my dad still feels like he loves me. Right? But he's afraid of me. He's afraid I'm going to say something that will injure his belief system. Or he's afraid that being close to me will in some way violate his relationship with his God. Or in some way, it's a selfish thing, and love's not selfish. Right? It's selfish to be my fear of my own faith continuity or whatever is enough to stop me from embracing this person.
The philosophy that I try to live by is to do no harm. To be the best person that I can be with what I think is morally right. I try to do my best. And I guess that's my motto. I do the best I can, and that's all I can do, When I was first leaving the witnesses, I put on MySpace at the time, I am my own God. And that's one thing I realized was if I want anything to change, if I want things to be better, if I want to feel happy, it's all coming from me. There's no other force that's going to do it. And so I am my own God.
So after all these years of me holding this position and bringing Sid to meetings and reading from the Bible storybook and everything, I tell him, okay, Sid, Dad's not going to be a witness anymore. And he goes, oh, thank goodness you finally figured it out. I was he's 9, and he's like, I was wondering when you were going to figure this out. And I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah. I was like, you don't believe any of this? He's like, nope. So that transition was the easiest part. And it makes me really happy that I decided to be honest. I stayed because I love the people. And I still love the people. And I still lose my mind with super joy and happiness every time one of them wanders back and gives me a phone call and is like, hey, Ryan, you're not a witness anymore? Yes! Right? It's the best thing ever because it just takes this barrier down. I never stopped loving any one of these people.
Good job, you beautiful.
Goodbye, everybody. It's been nice knowing you. Goodbye, everybody. It's been nice knowing you.